Frozen. I remember during the time before its release, everyone had doubts over this film, thinking that this'll be just tangled on ice. The result, however, completely blew everyone's expectations away. Frozen is an instant Disney classic that hits all the right notes so that it'll be remembered for years to come. The story is written so well by giving something familiar with the Disney formula, but executed in a way that makes it look completely new. The animation is breathtaking, with great use of effects and designs like Elsa's Ice Palace and the Kingdom of Arendelle. The characters are lovable, from the powerful but frightened Elsa, to the high-spirited Anna, to the snarky yet charming Kristoff, to the naive Olaf. The songs are just unforgettable, with a more Broadway tone that's uplifting, fun, and often pretty deep. In recent years, a lot of people are arguing if Disney's entering a new era with their animated films. If Frozen isn't proof enough to say that Disney's back, then I don't know what the fridge can. I wouldn't say that this is a second renaissance, but this is definitely a new age for Walt Disney Animation Studios, where their films even overshadow the ones made by Pixar, and that's really saying a lot. I mean, as I'm recording this, Disney is actually thinking of putting this on Broadway, and even I know that this is something that can easily work. Frozen, the #1 greatest animated film of 2013.
The cold never bothered me anyway.
The Adventures of Tintin. There's great, there's amazing, and then there's Tintin. Made by two of Hollywood's greatest filmmakers, The Adventures of Tintin has a solving the mystery plot that brings you in once it starts, the greatest motion capture animation I have ever seen, and unforgettable characters. Also, it has some of the most intense action scenes that I've seen all year. Even more than Kung Fu Panda 2, both in quantity and settings, from a pirate battle to a motorcycle chase scene in Morocco. I remember reading some of the Hergé comics when I was a kid, and from what I remember, it seems to be really faithful to the comics. In fact, the character designs seem to match perfectly to the original designs while making them look like a real person. Also, sometimes the animation is so good that I thought the movie was in live action, something that I've never experienced in an animated film before. The only bad things about it is that the plot may seem to resemble too much like Indiana Jones, and some of the humor may be hit and miss, but that's just considered nitpicking just talking about it. I don't know what else to say other than go watch it while you still can. It's a film that no movie fan of any kind should miss. Kubo and the Two Strings. Even if they've only made a handful of animated features, Laika has always been known to push stop motion to new levels both creatively and technologically. What they have done with Kubo so far exceeds all of their previous achievements. By enveloping the film with a strong theme of traditional Japanese storytelling, it tells the story of Kubo and the mystical journey he goes through in order to stop his vengeful grandfather. A tale that is capable of becoming both engaging and enchanting, that is enriched with complex and well thought out characters, told by some phenomenal animation that even surpasses anything done by the medium. Rather it be the use of Kubo's origami papers, or the giant red skeleton that's actually as big as it seems. Not only is this one of the best animated films of the year, but this is even the best stop motion animated film in a long time. Unfortunately, not many people had the experience to witness this on the big screen, which is a bit of a shame because this is a movie that has to be seen to be believed. But if you ever decide to go watch it, just remember beforehand,
If you must blink, do it now.
I'm wondering what your family does at that time of year.
oh yeah, I forgot that it starts with an Olaf short. Alright, just give me a moment. Coco. I remember when people had their doubts over this movie before it was released. Controversies, questions about creative decisions, comparisons to the Book of Life, all of which brought skepticism onto the film. But when it was time for the movie to truly present itself, that was when everything changed. The reason why Coco is considered the best animated film of the year is because of how it presents itself as a celebration of Mexican culture. How the theme of music and family are presented throughout the feature, the use of Mexican folk art and vibrant colors on the animation, and characters that audiences can make parallels from their own family are all reasons that helped made it become Mexico's most beloved animated feature. But it's not just them that loves this film. People from all around the world embrace it because it's great. The story is engaging and filled with a lot of heart. The animation is spectacularly grand and highly creative, and the characters are unforgettable and loaded with surprises. Sure, 2017 was pretty terrible and there were more memorably bad moments than memorably good ones, but if there is one thing that we can take from it so we can always cherish the great moments it brought us, it would have to be placing Coco as the #1 best animated film of 2017. Anomalisa. The one time that it ever had its 15 minutes of fame was during the awards season, where it was prominently nominated everywhere for Best Animated Feature, but only won some small awards and ended up being left forgotten since. A tragic fate for the kind of film this is, because when watching it, it presents why it deserves so much more respect. Sure, it may not have the same speed or charisma as other mainstream films, but what makes the movie so gripping is its dark sense of reality. There have been tons of movies about love, but this one is about the complete opposite. The lack of love and the portrayal of loneliness. A tale of a man whom, despite having everything, feels like he has nothing, and needs an escape from his own life to feel like he can live again. While a very down-to-earth kind of feature, it does take advantage of the stop-motion animation that's as very well created as the ones by Laika and Aardman, along with presenting very human and deep characters to present the somber emotions that are in all of us. While many animated features try to escape the dark side of reality as much as possible, this one makes itself unique by embracing it, resulting in a fascinating animated feature in a haunting kind of way. I mean, you have to give it credit. There isn't many films like this that present loneliness in such a beautiful way.
I think you're extraordinary.
Why?
I don't know yet. It's just obvious to me that you are.
How to Train Your Dragon 2. Out of all the sequels I've seen, never has there been one that not only improved its flaws of its predecessor, but also really expand its own world and the characters that live in it as much as Dragon 2. What makes this film truly stand out is that it gives more of what makes the first film DreamWorks' latest major franchise. It has a heartwarming and epic story that looks more into the dragons and the relationship of a more mature Hiccup with his long-lost mother, new characters that are able to bring more depth to the world of Berk and to the recurring characters, and some of the best animation that DreamWorks has offered yet. But do you know what really makes this film the best of this year? Is that it was able to accomplish beyond its expectations both as a sequel and as a movie. It was able to take someone like me, who isn't much of a fan of the first movie, and make me just overwhelmed by how amazingly crafted this is in terms of its writing and animation. If that's not what makes a fantastic movie, then I don't know what can. How to Train Your Dragon 2, the #1 best animated film of 2014. Toy Story 4. Ever since this movie was first announced, people were completely furious at Pixar for continuing the franchise after what many consider to be the perfect ending to one of the best film franchises. It was hard to think how they could possibly top the moment when Andy said so long to his partner, Andy. But when the time came for the 4th installment to prove itself, the backlash quickly disappeared and achieved what many think to be impossible by showing that there is more to tell after Toy Story 3, and it is incredible. What puts this movie above the rest is the way that it not only successfully continues the story, but doing so while maintaining the legendary quality of the Toy Story franchise. It presents very rich and complex writing that gives out a thought-provoking and very emotional story that goes deeper into the concept of what is a toy, animation that further shows how the franchise displays the evolution of CGI from 1995 to now with highly detailed and enhanced visuals, and a cast of characters that feature recurring ones that receive a significant update and new additions that bring out more fun and great comedy. Considering that 2019 had plenty of animated sequels, what makes Toy Story 4 stand out among the rest is that this one is the closest to meet the same standards of its predecessor, and considering that this is the follow-up to what's possibly the greatest animated trilogy, that means it reached a bar where it was already at the highest point. It demonstrated that the doubters were wrong by strongly continuing one of animation's most important franchises, and that is why Toy Story 4 is the best animated film of 2019. At the start of the decade, audiences were presented with a nostalgic grand finale of one of the greatest animated film franchises of all time, Toy Story 3. A perfectly timed feature where the kids that grew up with the first two films have now grown with Andy to see Woody and Buzz's new adventures where they mistakenly get donated to a daycare. As the toys supply the film with some great comedy and exhilarating animation, on top of some surprisingly intense moments, it also delivers some deep and tear-jerking times as it explores a lot more into the concept of a toy with how they're treated in a daycare and what happens to them when their original owners grow up. It ended on what many people consider to be a perfect ending after crying their eyes out. So much so that it made history by being the first ever animated feature to make $1 billion at the box office and get an Oscar nomination for Best Picture. Afterwards, the world felt very satisfied with what Pixar had created and unanimously proclaimed Toy Story as the best animated trilogy.
Inside Out. After receiving follow-ups that failed to reach Pixar's standards of quality, here is a film that reminds us why they were considered as the greatest in the industry. Fueled by a concept that is absolutely genius, Inside Out is capable of unleashing a fantastically original story, creative animation that is the definition of powered by imagination, and unforgettable characters that wonderfully illustrates not only who Riley is, but who we are as well. It is a movie that is so well crafted that audiences had to resort to the short to find any flaws. Like I said before, this wasn't a big year for animated features, and some might look back at only a couple of them and find that they were just enjoyably good. With Inside Out, on the other hand, this will be the one animated movie this year that will be remembered for a long time. Not just as one of the best films of the year, but also as one of the best animated features of the decade. But above all else, Inside Out will always be remembered as the #1 best animated film of 2015.
Zootopia. If I had to pick the biggest surprise in animated films of 2016, it would have to be how amazing this film turned out to be. During the start of the year, everyone was expecting that this would be just some fun-filled adventure with anthropomorphic animals that's just meant to be an appetizer before Moana would come in. But it actually turned out to be one of Disney's strongest animated features. Who knew that this would have such an exhilarating story that is filled with tremendous heart and humor? The breathtaking animation that brought an entire city to life. The cast of unforgettable characters that some could be considered inspirational. And the one thing that really sets it apart from all other animated features is the powerful message of discrimination and bigotry that some Americans still don't understand. Throughout the 2010 decade, Walt Disney Animation Studios has gotten stronger and stronger with their films, even to the point of beating Pixar standards. But during the time they released this, it presented the world once again why they are both the greatest and most beloved animation studio of all time, with numerous of achievements such as crafting Zootopia as the #1 best animated film of 2016.